Hi everybody. I should be in bed, but I went ahead and I did my makeup, which takes me half an hour just to do my false eyelashes, put myself together, because I wanted to make another important video. Today I wanted to expand a little bit more on the negative side effects, residual negative side effects that you can go through as a result of a love spell, or in particular, a love binding. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sabrina, Shamanic Witch, Psychic Healer. I've been doing quite a lot of study and research again, and as luck would have it, Clifford Hartley Lowe has a new video out on Grimoire TV here on YouTube. He's got a new lecture that he did this year at Convocation. And I wasn't sure he was going to be doing them anymore. I think I was following him on Twitter, and he was doing his own thing with his website and his blog, and I thought he had said he might not be doing that anymore. But anyway, here he was giving a lecture on scepter magic. I highly recommend that you go and watch it, because I don't care who you are or what walk of life you are on. You need to understand that we are all mind. Every single person is mind. And mind is spirit. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. First, I want to say that there's a lot of information that he's giving in this lecture that, if you've heard it before, listen to it again, because there's new information there, and there's also information that just kind of reiterated and revalidated some of the things I've done and knew, but actually just hit home with me and what I've been going through the past couple of months. If you've been following me, you know I just recently made a video called Dream Sorcery. And this has to do with people who can invade your dreams and influence your dreams, your thoughts, and your feelings. This is your spirit, body, your mind. Your spirit, your thoughts, this is the spiritual you. This is your soul. And when you sleep at night, you are in your spirit, you're in your soul. And when you are dreaming, whether you remember it or not, or you are traveling, you are soul traveling. This is what astral travel is. What I'm learning is that people who are on what's called the spectrum, people that have autism, ADD, OCD, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, narcissism, codependent narcissistic tendencies and traits, people that are just in their head all the time are considered very spiritual, believe it or not. This is telepathy. I gotta go get my book over there so I can read to you. Telepathy is the language of the spirit. These are not things that I'm familiar with in any religion that I have ever studied or been taught, that is wisdom passed down to the congregation. This is spiritual knowledge that turning your life over to an ascended master is not going to protect you from. And I'm revisiting my Dream Recall course on Thinkific.com, and I really want to talk to you about this a little bit more, because I really need to promote this more. This is becoming clearer and clearer to me, that we are not really taking responsibility for our not only our own psychic energy and our psychic thoughts and our psychic protection, but for whatever thoughts might be popping into our head during the day and in sleep. So, in this lecture, Clifford Hartley Lowe gave more information, so I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on the symptoms that you could be having. I talked about the symptoms I was having in my video. And when you are not liking a situation, you're feeling that the dream is strange, it doesn't seem quite right. You know, who is this person? Am I having a prophetic dream? But you know, it just doesn't seem to make sense. You kind of feel like you know who the person is, but it doesn't quite make sense. If you don't know the person, or you don't know the person very well, all of a sudden you're having these very, very amorous dreams, or you're feeling you're in some type of a romantic relationship with them, you need to question it. Because these people, if someone gets an idea on you, they get latched onto you, they can start sending you their thoughts. And like I said, as I was resisting, I began to feel pain. Why? Because if someone does a binding on you, it is actually like a marriage. And this is considered a sacred contract. This is a soul contract. It's spiritual. And what happens is when one of them begins to wrench away, you begin to feel the same thing you would feel as if you were having a real breakup with someone that you had been in a relationship with. You'd been in love with them, or you'd been having, intimate relations with them on a regular basis. You've been together for a few years, or you were married and now you're going through a divorce. And what I'm realizing is that one of the reasons that I went through my dark night of the soul was because I was wrenching myself away from my narcissistic husband during the marriage. For this reason, I don't believe in bindings. I've said I'll never get legally married again. That's for another video, because you can make a commitment with someone without going through all of that. It's like the Cinderella complex. You're merging yourself with another person. This is not healthy. Psychologists will tell you this is not healthy. But, they don't want to get in the middle of religion, I guess, and they don't want to not support that idea. My mom used to say, if the you that is you and the I that is I can cohabit peacefully, we will have learned. It's like being friends. And if they're not your best friend, someone's being probably dominated, or you're, getting into this idea of binding by the church and the state, which I really feel, in my opinion, is very domineering, very dominating. It's a patriarchal ideology of religion that we have in this country, in the United States of America. Where there's no goddess, there's no female deity for the women to relate to, we're left out in the cold. Okay, so anyone who binds another one to them, this is what's happening. So not only was I having, brain fog and nauseous in my gut and going into just this dark place in my mind, not wanting to come home, and then no energy. I was exhausted. I had trouble getting up and going to work. Other symptoms that Clifford said can happen with people that do a very strong love binding is that the person who's resisting can get headaches, nosebleeds, and have a seizure. medical community, the psychological community, doesn't understand these spiritual concepts. But I am looking at it more. I've thought of it in the past, many years ago, off and on throughout the years, but never ever really knew that this can be caused by somebody who's actually been linking themselves to you and attaching themselves to you. This can happen with people that are experiencing narcissistic abuse, which is basically what I'm really, in my opinion, okay? And I don't think I'm that far off the mark, that this is a very narcissistic thing. I find the patriarchal ideology to be very narcissistic. Because when it's one-sided and it's male and God is male, well, what is man? God. And this is why we have this me Tarzan, you Jane mentality. And it's a lot more prevalent and prominent in certain areas, in particular where I live. And so, my conviction to be me is very private and very personal, except it's all over YouTube. I don't have that many followers. I am growing a little bit, so thank you, welcome. But yeah, you need to keep these things in mind. If you've been feeling nauseous and sad and depressed, and you know that someone has kind of been watching you or eyeing you or looking at you or coming near you to do their work every day for half an hour or so, these people are tapping into your energy. And I was going to say this for Patreon, but I can still talk about it and expand even more on it in Patreon. There are a couple of tests that you can do that I just learned, where you can actually perform a little activity to see whether you've got crossed conditions. Now, from there, we need to start talking about the healing process. The healing process, like a divorce, it doesn't happen in a week or two. It doesn't happen in a month or two, depending on how long you were with the person and how strong this connection was. There has to be an understanding that this is going to take probably months for you to totally clear this out of your system. This unhealthy connection that was made, okay, and whatever else might end up coming of it, I don't know, because okay, I don't want to get off topic here. It's a painful process, all right? You're going to have waves of these memories and these feelings coming back to overwhelm you. I had that after my divorce. And it would be things that I felt triggered by, that I felt angered by, that I felt, unable to say or do anything about. It would come back from time to time. It's like, oh, I wish I had said that. Or, why didn't I know that? This is going to happen. It happens with any breakup. And it's not to say that you shouldn't have a relationship with anyone. You can heal, but it's a process, not an event. I learned this when I started going to my counselor. And we started examining some of the thoughts and feelings that were coming up as I was doing my meditations again. And one of those things can be when someone threatens to unalive himself. If you do not comply, if you do not marry them. That was one of the things that was coming up. It was being cleared out of my body and my mind. And I had to go and talk to my counselor about it because it was coming out in weird ways. I all of a sudden heard my son yell, "Mom, Dad's gonna unalive himself." And I went to the living room and I said, "What kind of a thing is that to say?" And they said, "What?" I said, "What you just said." No, I didn't say that. I heard you clear as a bell. This was coming from my lower vibrational self, and it came in the form of clairaudience because my clairs had opened. And when I told my counselor, she said, "Don't worry about it. It's coming up from a lower place. It's being released." You can have a lot of somatic release when you start meditating and you're learning to visualize certain things, okay? You're following certain types of guided meditations like I was, and you're speaking certain types of affirmations to yourself. And it is basically what is called a spontaneous release. Now, obviously I had a trigger, but it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't as dramatic, and I didn't feel it in my gut like I did when my fiance had threatened that to me, and I felt like a hook in my gut. This was just an outward experience. Similar to a memory that would come up and you see it like a photograph, but you're not emotionally attached to it anymore. You're like, "Oh, I remember that. Oh, wow, why did I think that?" See? Those are spontaneous releases. So that's part of the healing process that can happen if you are doing your inner work and you are meditating and you are journaling. And, you're allowing yourself to cry because this is a chemical release and this is part of the process. This is part of the purging process. And as you grow and you become wiser and you become more aware, you become more conscious, you're raising your frequency. You are no longer thinking and acting and behaving quite the way you used to. And your steps even feel lighter. But this comes from being patient with yourself. Now, I wasn't practicing candle magic at that time, but one of the things you can do with candle magic is a cord cutting. And I've already done a couple of cord cuttings. Each one actually revealed something different each time. And then I've done some other candle magics. But it's an ongoing process, okay? Because there is still a thin cord tethered to the other person. So when it is a very, very strong binding with someone that actually really wanted a marriage in the spiritual sense, in the spirit realm, and really wanted to be with you, it's no different than actually being married, except that you never talked about it with a person. You never gave your consent. So in that way, you have to continually do, I would suggest candle workings, like burning a black candle on Saturday to banish negativity, and also burning black candles to banish the negativity from two people. If you are putting up boundaries or you are no contact, if you're able to do that, that doesn't always work except in certain situations where if there was someone that you really didn't know, that they were watching you and they were latched onto you. And this is someone who's on the spectrum that is just constantly in their head. They don't really know the difference between what is in their imagination and what reality is. To them, it's one and the same. It's just as real as waking up and walking around and believing that you are in a relationship with that person. You're with, you know. So I guess it's similar to these people that get attached to celebrities and say, you know, that's my husband or that's my wife. They end up in court because they're having a restraining order or whatever, and people are laughing at them. But this is just what's going on in these people's minds. Now, some of them can be temporarily grounded. They're able to hold down a job. They function fairly well, although they may be running on anger all the time. And I was running on quite a bit of anger for the first 4 years after my divorce, when I severed it legally. I was already severing it emotionally before I severed it legally. And so these candle workings are psychological techniques. I really feel that they are prayers with props. I had a friend who told me that. These are very helpful psychological techniques that call upon nature and the elements. You are a part of nature. So this is very real. And in my Dream Recall course, I'm realizing how this can fit in with this awareness that people need to have. And that is, you need to learn how to remember your dreams. You need to learn dream recall. You need to get in touch with your spirit self if you're out of touch with it. If you don't think you dream, if you're not remembering your dreams, you need to get past that and understand that you need to remember your dreams. That's the first step. And I have a short course. It's got 7 sections, 5-minute videos. And just section 5 in itself is worth the price of the entire course. I've spent most of my life studying and practicing. And I've purchased courses and workshops and cassette tapes and CDs over the course of time and spent thousands of dollars. And this represents quite a lot of my knowledge. I know how the mind works. And you need to know that these people that are on the spectrum, that are in their mind, they're telepathic. That is the language of spirit. Some people also say it is the language of heaven and the language of angels. They're just in that realm. And so for those people, they're not connected to their body. They're not really grounded, and they don't really take care of themselves. My mother was one of those people. Never really brushed her teeth regularly, never showered regularly. Never understood the importance of really taking care of herself. Never really did. Never actually connected, was able to actually get herself to feel totally in her body and comfortable with her body. This is called being grounded. So those people that are, on the spectrum like that, and like my mother, They get their energy through their anger because they've got issues that they may have not worked through completely. And you're pushing yourself with anger, and then you're tired, or you're exhausted, or you burn out after 4 days. My mom burnt out after a few hours. That's how she got her energy, was from anger. It wasn't from peace. It wasn't from faith. It wasn't from being healed. It wasn't from being grounded. So the other chapter that I have in my Dream Recall course is about understanding the symbols that come into your mind. So as you do become more and more aware, I have a trigger. In chapter 5, you're going to develop a hypnosis trigger that will help you anytime anywhere you decide you want to employ this trigger, will help you remember your dream. And the more you use it, the more it will work. Now from there, you need to start using your common sense and your intuition to decide whether or not what you're seeing in your dream makes any sense. If it's something that you feel like you should really be acting on. And I've already said this before, I don't think women should be going after men. I don't think that we should be pursuing them, consistently. Because if they're not showing an interest, you've thrown them the ball and they're not picking it up, forget it. Move on. So yes, from there you have to write down your dreams and then ask yourself why you're feeling a certain way. Go by the way the dream feels. Why am I feeling this way? But yes, you need to understand that telepathy is real. I have it, but I don't misuse it. But there's people that are underdeveloped emotionally. Maybe it's their first time here. It's their first incarnation. And they're like the fool in the tarot. And they have trouble dealing with the mundane things of life. But because this one sense of theirs is just used so much of the time, it's very strong. They can project their thoughts. They can project their will. And there's one man here on YouTube who talks about thoughts that come in your head that you might think are yours, or it's, coming from an ancestor, but it's actually coming from somebody else that wants you to think or feel a certain way. Think about them, feel a certain way. It's enough to drive you crazy, but you just need to understand this is knowledge that you need to have. My next course is going to be on psychic protection and dream programming. You need to learn how to take control of your dream space so that when you go to sleep and you have your dream time, you're not going to be invaded. You also need to be aware of what types of things you can do magically during the daytime that can help block out people that might be trying to send you messages through billboards or songs on the radio. If it's not coming from your spirit guide, and you should be able to tell the difference, because if it's of a more romantic nature or it has to do with this person. One comment I saw, without doxing anyone, was directed to this JT in his channel, where he was talking about this, and a commenter stated that many people talked about their dreams. A dream of the ex laying with them and with their new person, and then all of a sudden the dream changed, where he was writing a book about his life with that person who was a narcissist, and then it became It caught the eye of a producer who turned it into a movie. Every narc's dream, okay? To be memorialized, immortalized in celluloid forever and ever, or digital forever and ever. This person still didn't recognize that they were being manipulated in their dream. And he actually said, oh, that would be nice. I was a little surprised that the owner of the channel didn't say, you're still being manipulated. This is exactly what that person wants. Write a book about you and them. Right? And he said it might be good, to share that and talk about that on a wide scale. But I respectfully disagree, because I think this person really didn't recognize yet that they are in the healing process still, and got all caught up in this idea of sharing their knowledge when in fact they're just going to be making the narc famous. So yeah, it's simple, but it's complicated. If you think about a strong-willed child, okay, they're starting out in life. And they're very willful, and they're very wild, they're very unhinged, they're very raw, they're very real, but they're children. The problem is when this continues in someone's life who is now an adult, and that hasn't stopped, or it's been overlooked, and it's related to a trauma in childhood that has not yet been addressed. I did make a video that I felt I had had a dream about this person's childhood trauma and this person's issue. And there is a psychic tarot reader that I've been following who seems to hit the nail on the head about a lot of things. And she mentioned that. And I don't know whether this person has picked up on it or not, but I received the gnosis. I'm a shamanic witch. And a lot of times, as painful as it is, we pick up on people's ailments and then we purge them. And I have worked with a schizophrenic and someone with schizoaffective disorder. And they were helped. It wasn't my goal, it wasn't my plan. But as I got to know this one of these people, and then one day I gave her a hug, I picked up on her energetic field, and she'd given me a necklace. So we connected. And I had a dream that I was so frightened. I was having like these panic attacks, and my body kept going up to the ceiling. And when I mentioned it to her, I said, do you get frightened like that? Do you have, these panic attacks? And she said, no. So they will deny things. They don't want you to have knowledge of their private self. And I said, I'm just asking because this is what I was seeing. Is this what you're feeling? Well, it was. I knew it was. I'd been around her enough to know. But after that, she was able to hold down a job for 12 whole months. Now, the schizophrenic that I met had already been in psychiatric analysis and medication, and he wanted to get better. And when he met me, he was asking me all kinds of questions. We were talking on the phone. I led him through a hypnotherapy session to build his confidence, because I had learned in the course I took that my teacher said her favorite clients were schizophrenics because they're always in their head, in their imagination. She used that in order to paint a picture for that person to change their behavior, to change their thoughts and feelings about themselves. The schizophrenic is very talented. I have a very thick book of some writings that he has done. But the most remarkable thing was when he called me one day, I said, is it my imagination or are you not stuttering as much? And this person had a stuttering problem. he said, no, it's not your imagination. He said, my stuttering's going away. And my doctor's nurse was floored. She was blown away. You're not stuttering anymore. Oh, I'm just going to say, oh. How is this? What's happening? And I don't know if he told her that he had been having a session with me over the phone. But yeah, there you go. Things that people believe are impossible are not, because this is a spiritual concept and it is possible. Or you can connect to someone energetically and pick up on them. And then, of course, I usually get tired and thirsty and I have to rest for the next 24 hours. I don't always know what's going on. So these things, you know, it's taken me years to realize how I can pick up on other people's energies, but other people can pick up on you as well. Your aura, like, if I haven't said this already, your aura goes out anywhere from 6 to 10 or 12 feet. So I'm going to leave a link to my Dream Recall course, which is going to give you helpful information on keeping a dream notebook and a dictionary of symbols that come into your dreams. Learning how to use a trigger, create a trigger, so that you can call up, bring up a dream anytime during the day, wherever, you know, in a safe place, wherever you are, if you weren't able to remember it immediately in the morning. So keep these things in mind, that as we go about our lives, we have new knowledge and we can learn to be aware. And then be patient with ourselves as we go through the healing process. But I think that there's a lot of things that need to change with religion in my country anyway, and this idea of, you know, binding people together, because when one person is growing, or you find out that they're narcissistic or abusive or whatever, and you have to break away, it's very, very difficult. And, you know, whatever ends up happening with people that go and get healed and go and change and, you know, are able to come back together and have a better situation, I'm sure does happen from time to time. But you have to be willing to want to heal and change, just like my schizophrenic friend. All right, take care, and I will see you soon.